We spend about a third of our entire lives asleep. But what is actually going on when we close our eyes? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret world of your sleep, and it's all based on the incredible work of sleep scientist Matthew Walker.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with a question that seems kind of simple. Is getting 4 hours of sleep just half as good as getting a full 8? Now, you might think, yeah, obviously. But by the end of this, you're going to see why the answer is a huge, resounding no. And trust me, the reason why is way more interesting than you think.
First things first, we have to ditch this old idea that sleep is just like flipping an off switch for your brain. It's not. The reality is, when you're asleep, your brain is buzzing with activity. It's running through this highly organized, super important checklist of tasks. It's not a lack of activity, it's a totally different kind of activity.
All right, so let's start our journey into this hidden world and find out what your brain is so busy doing after the lights go out.
So, to really understand what happens during the night, you've got to meet the two main characters, the two fundamental types of sleep that are running the whole show.
I want you to think of it like this. Every single night, your brain becomes the arena for this epic tug-of-war. You've got two very different kinds of sleep pulling on the rope, fighting for control. And who's winning that fight actually changes all night long. This battle is the key to everything.
On one side of the rope, you have NREM sleep. You can think of this as the deep, quiet, physical restoration sleep. And on the other side, that's REM sleep. You know, the famous one, with the superactive brain, the crazy vivid dreams, and all the heavy lifting for your emotional health. Totally different, but both are absolutely essential.
So let's zoom in on NREM sleep first. It stands for non-rapid eye movement. This is when your brainwaves slow way down. It's your deepest, most physically restorative sleep. It's when your body gets to work on repairing muscles, growing, and even cleaning out all the metabolic junk that builds up in your brain during the day.
And then you've got its polar opposite, REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. You know, scientists actually call this paradoxical sleep, and for good reason. If you looked at a brain scan, you'd think the person was wide awake. Their eyes are darting all over the place. But their body is completely frozen, paralyzed. And this, of course, is where our wildest, most story-like dreams happen.
So we've met our two main players, NREM and REM. But how do they interact? How do they share the stage? Well, it turns out they follow this incredibly predictable rhythm all night long.
This chart right here, this is basically the blueprint for a typical night. It's called a hypnogram, and it maps out our entire journey. See the peaks? That's lighter sleep. And those deep valleys? That's when we're in the deepest sleep possible. It shows exactly how we cycle between NREM, REM, and even tiny moments of being awake all through the night.
And if you look closely at that blueprint, you start to see a pattern, a pulse. Your brain doesn't just pick one type of sleep and stay there. Nope. It cycles. And one full cycle, from light sleep down into the deep and then back up into dreamland, takes on average about 90 minutes.
So that means that every hour and a half, you are taking this exact same trip. You drift off into light NRM sleep, then you take a deep dive into that restorative NRM, and then you surface into the wild, wacky world of REM sleep before the whole ride starts all over again.
Okay, so 90-minute cycles. Seems pretty straightforward, right? Well, here is the twist. This is the absolute game changer that answers our first question. Not all of those 90-minute cycles are the same. In fact, they aren't even close.
Let's look at that map again. See those really deep, dramatic valleys in the first half of the night? That is your brain prioritizing deep, non-REM sleep. For the first 3 or 4 hours, your brain is all business. It's laser-focused on that physical restoration. It pours almost all its energy into non-REM.
But then, look what happens as you cross that halfway mark of the night. It's like a switch flips. The deep NREM valleys get way shallower, right? And the periods of REM sleep, those darker lines near the top, they get much longer. The brain's priority has completely shifted. The second half of the night belongs to REM sleep.
And this chart just spells it out perfectly. In the first half of your night, the balance is totally skewed toward NREM. We're talking like an 80-20 split. But in the second half, it completely reverses. The brain dedicates a whopping 80% of that time to REM sleep. It's a completely different biological agenda.
And this is exactly what Matthew Walker's work highlights. This dramatic flip in the ratio between NREM and REM is one of the most critical and honestly most misunderstood things about our sleep. Okay, so what does this all mean for you? Why should you care?
Because this isn't just some abstract science. It directly explains why you feel the way you do after you've pulled a short night. And here it is, the bottom line. When you only sleep for, say, 4 or 5 hours, you're not just getting less sleep, you're getting a fundamentally unbalanced and incomplete sleep. You might get a good chunk of your physical repair NREM sleep, but you are cheating yourself out of 60, 70, maybe even 90% of your vital, mind-mending REM sleep.
So let's just recap the big takeaways here. Sleep is a super active, highly structured process. Your brain cycles through that deep NREM and dreaming REM about every 90 minutes. But, and this is the key, the early part of the night is for your body, and the late part of the night is for your mind. You absolutely need the full night to get the right balance of both.
Which brings us right back to where we started. 4 hours of sleep is not half as good as 8, not even close. It's an entirely different biological prescription, one that's missing almost all of the REM sleep, the very stage you need for creativity, for emotional balance, for cementing memories. So the next time you think about setting that alarm super early, ask yourself this. Are you cheating your brain of its final, and maybe most important, act of the night?